In yesterday's video, we talked about the demons of light, the Seraphon themselves. Well, today we're going to focus on the leaders of that faction who make it all possible, the Slann. And these are the seemingly immortal wizards without equal. They fly through the stars of Azir, bathe in the raw magic, the raw stuff of Azirian magic, infusing themselves with the heavens. This is the same power, the same essence of starlight that they can manifest into devastating magics and solidify into physical warriors on the field. It's incredible and impactful. And the battle tome really frames these guys as being the core of any Seraphon army, which is not technically true. As we discussed briefly, and I'll put the picture back up here because people constantly ask me this in the comments on certain videos, the Slann will summon a Seraphon, meaning give life to them, form them out of the stuff of magic, but then that Seraphon can function independently. They are a living being. Once a demon is formed in this kind of overarching narrative of Age of Sigmar, either Chaos or Seraphon, they just exist. They don't dissipate necessarily after every battle, nothing like that. So before I go any further, I want to make it sure you understand that the Slann are not a requirement for a thematic army, but they are really a great piece to have for your faction because of how exciting they are, and we're going to talk about why now. They are extremely interesting because they are some of the only survivors from the old world. By that I mean most of the people that we know came forward from the old world to the current setting of Age of Sigmar. They're frankly all named characters, either gods or just kind of right below god levels like demigods, so like a Neferata or something. These kind of super impactful characters, but not these guys, unnamed. They just kind of survived. They made it out of the old world. And as such, they remember everything. Like I said yesterday, they have a vast intellect. They're incredibly smart with outstanding memories. In fact, their intelligence is frankly more godlike than some of the gods in terms of being level-headed and using the information you have to make the best calls. And as such, they are constantly learning. They're studying the ways of chaos, looking at other order armies, trying to figure out the best way to kind of play this giant game that is the Mortal Realms. And because of that, they can fight above their weight class, meaning they're a very small faction. There's not a ton of them, but when they strike at the right places at the right time because the Slann have kind of predicted through analysis and intelligence exactly what they need to do to cripple the enemy. It's fighting smart, not hard. As said before, they see the war on chaos, basically all of the Mortal Realms, as a giant game. Think of it as like 8-level chess, where each level is a different Mortal Realm. And because the faction is so removed from other ordered armies, right, they don't ally in very well with others because of language barriers and things like that, they really act as a scalpel. They're a small force, they find the right place at the right time, strike it hard, destroy the plans of the enemy, hit them when they're weak, fill in the blank, and they're able to do that kind of hard hit, get into combat fast, and then pull out of the combat fast with zero loss of life because they can always just replenish their ranks later on. And this large-scale perspective changes their values and their plans, because they make decisions that no other people would. We talked yesterday about sacrificing the continent so that you can destroy the warband. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Those big plays that nobody else is willing to take, they are. But because of that, they also can seize opportunities that no one else will see. In our example, where a huge, massive warband, like say the Gortide, was about to attack and come into and sweep a continent of order factions and fortresses and things like that, Sigmar would go out and defend them and try to fight them because these people deserve to live, whereas the Seraphon might let them take the entire continent because then they'd be spread out, thin, weak, tired from battle, and they would just go in and just destroy them all. Right, that's kind of their thinking. But Sigmar would never see that opportunity simply because he'd be too busy and too concerned with saving the people. A great example of this is a book, this is actually a short story by Gab Thorpe called Lord of the Cosmic Gates, one of the earlier things to be released for AOS. And it details a Tzeentch sorcerer who finds a way to open a gate straight from one of the mortal realms into the realm of chaos where Tzeentch is, right? He wants to kind of create like an open access door for Tzeentch to just pour in and ruin things. And it's this very complicated ritual. The stars have to align quite right just for the door to open. He has to tear it open with a very specific spell. And of course, the Seraphon, who could have attacked him throughout the entire story, waited until the ceremony was going on because he knew that was the moment to strike. That was the minute for this ritual has to be shut down. And it's the right one to do it because everyone's distracted by actually conducting the ritual instead of guarding themselves. So it's actually this great story of the Seraphon busting open, lights of heaven come down. The sorcerer initially thinks, oh, I opened the door, and this is just like the enlightenment of Tzeentch coming down, and then frickin' Ripperdactyls just go berserk and start plucking up people all around him and just shredding. It's a great battle depiction of these guys in combat. And what I love is the sorcerer, who you've been following the entire story, looks across the battlefield and sees the Slann, who's just sitting there in his little chair, like palanquin thing, just emotionless, just taking it in and conducting himself, right? That kind of mechanical almost intelligence going on. And it's this great duality that you see between his kind of level-headed intelligence, thinking all this through, playing the game, very into it, and all the, I almost said chaos, but just savagery around him of all the ways that his warriors conduct themselves. We're going to talk about the skinks and talk about the Saurus warriors later on in the week, but they're vicious, like they are savage. And so that kind of like duality of like, he looks so calm and serene and thinking about things, but just the insanity that he brings with him was just a really awesome scene. Now, it's also important to note that a lot of the Slann imagery and the kind of references the Battletome makes have to do with these stars. Well, that's because their magic tends to come from Azir, the realm of heavens. Now, keep in mind, this is before we really understood a good dichotomy. Like, there's a difference between Azir and Sigmar, right? Like, he is from the realm of heavens, that's what he kind of embodies, but he is not the realm itself, much like there's Nagash, but then there's also this mineral called like grave sand. It's like actual raw stuff of death magic. The two are not the same. So you have the Seraphon, who are kind of going in there, soaking up a bunch of energy from Azir, energy of the heavens, and then crystallizing it into a being. Well, much in the same way, the stars themselves operate kind of like how the lizardmen did in the old world, which is lizardmen would go across the globe, find these like places of great power, these like ley lines and power nodes and things like that, and set up fortresses there to kind of harness that power. They do the same thing, but with star constellations, because those constellations project energy throughout the mortal realms, and they can manipulate those stars. And in doing so, they use the heavens themselves as just another piece of their big game that they're playing. So what makes the Slann so incredibly cool? Well, frankly, the sheer amount of power they have, right? They're kind of good guys who wield the power of a chaos god, because in a sense, being able to take raw magic, form it into a consciousness, and put it on the battlefield in a permanent state like demons are, is something that is wholly unique to the chaos gods except for Seraphon. The difference is there's only 4 chaos gods, and there's a whole lot of Seraphon Slanns out there, relatively speaking. There's not a ton of them in terms of like numerical count, but there are, relative to just 4 chaos gods, there's quite a few Slanns out there. Another huge deal for them is, frankly, their intellect. No one else looks at this eternity of conflict so removed, right? Tzeentch and Nagash are both kind of great schemers and planners, but they're different, because they don't look at this as a game to be won, right? To like really thoughtfully use the resources they have to do what they need to do. Tzeentch gets so kind of twisted and convoluted in his plans that he kind of hurts himself sometimes and sets himself back, which is just dumb. He's bad at the game. And then you have Nagash, who makes terrible mistakes because his ego is so fragile, but he's okay with that because he knows that everyone dies in the end, and eventually they'll all wind up in Shyish. So he's not really playing to win, he's just kind of playing the long game because he knows he's not going anywhere. But these Slann have to be the smartest. They're not immortal, but they need to play this game, right, this big giant war game, the best that they can. And also, I found these to be sort of a tragic figure that I really enjoyed reading about, because this has to be the single loneliest existence in the mortal realms. They travel in isolation from their own kind. The only things present around them are memories of what they used to be, right? They used to remember their civilization being thriving, in charge on the old world, being frankly a dominant race, but when times were good and he remembered these people doing great things in person when they were alive, but now there's just memories. That's all it is. Then they might not dissipate, into starlight or whatever after every battle, but they're not the same. They're not that person. They're not that Saurus. And imagine that feeling of like, it's not supposed to be like this, because to them it isn't. I mean, it was supposed to be happiness and power in the old world, keeping chaos at bay. But you have that same feeling of it's not supposed to be like this, but you have to engage that feeling because that's how you make your army. And it's your only source of camaraderie. And I know that they're very emotionless. I understand that they're not just like driving around space crying all the time. But part of that emotionlessness comes from eons of this kind of thinking passing. Their idea of time and space is so warped, and all that time they've just been alone with memories and how much they hate chaos. So I have to remember that this has to do something to them, right? And so I'm kind of equally filled with pity, but also respect for the power that they bring. Because of all these things, because of the deadly intellect, the godlike power to bring beings into existence out of purest type of magic, their very relatable loneliness, and their alien nature, these guys are awesome. They're an awesome addition to any army. And frankly, I really like their model. So friends, those are my thoughts on the Great Slann of the Seraphon. Tomorrow we'll be taking a look at the Saurus warriors, and that includes all the leadership roles of them, and we'll learn about the kind of insane ferocity with which their army fights, because up until now we're just talking about how smart they are, but we're going to talk about how ferocious they are in combat. And I've really had my nose to the grindstone coming out with content leading up to 2nd edition, and it's not going to stop there. So once the new book drops, for the rest of us who didn't get early release copies, we're going to be hammering out some awesome lore, talking about the various realms, and going into some other cool stuff that I have planned for you guys. Thank you all so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you in my next Age of Sigmar lore video tomorrow, and you folks do some happy wargaming.